Hey guys, so today I just wanted to show you guys how I create my bulletin board. So the first thing I have to do when creating these bulletin boards is to take off the bulletin board that was first there. So now that that's off, I can go ahead and start taking everything off the board. And the reason I do it this way is because I find that it's a lot more easier and clean if I do it this way instead of just ripping the entire board off, because I like to have a very smooth surface, and I feel like when I just rip everything off, it leaves behind staples and then paper, and it's just so much for me to have to clean up later on. Just so you guys know, this is a handheld staple removal that I got from Staples, I believe. I personally like using this just because it's easier to use because it's in my hand and I'm not having to squeeze it like the regular staple removals that, have those like claw-like teeth things. So I find it's easier to use this, but it also has a magnet on the bottom, so it allows me to collect the staples easier. So at this point, I was over just having to take out all the staples in these letters for something that was going to go in the trash. So I just went ahead and ripped it off the wall. So after all of this was removed, I went ahead and removed the staples and paper that were left behind, and that's when tragedy struck. Ouch!
You big baby!
Alright, so now that I'm healed and uninjured, this is what the board looks like, all clean, and now it's time for my favorite part, to add the paper. So this was actually fun making the butcher paper that I'm putting up right now, because it brought back memories from high school of me on my junior varsity cheerleading team, because we had to make run-through signs for our football team, and in order to do that, we had to basically roll out long rolls of butcher paper and then tape them all together. So I don't know if you guys can see closely, but that blue tape that's on the back is where the two pieces of paper met, and it just brought back those memories of having to do it. It was a lot of work in high school, so I mean, just taping it now, and even this tape that you can see right here wasn't even close to the amount of tape we had to use to tape those banners together, but it just brought back memories. So now it's time for me to trim the excess paper that is hanging off the bulletin board. And what I do to save time, but also to make my lines more straight, is I take the scissors and I close them so they're flat, and I drag them across the paper. Usually this is cutting the paper essentially, but I drag them across the paper in the crease of the bulletin board. So as you guys can see, I'm basically cutting the paper without cutting the paper, so that way when I do go back and actually open the scissors and cut the paper, it's a lot easier to follow along. So now that that's all done, I just went back over it again and smoothed it out and put some more staples in it to keep everything sturdy. And then I'm about to add my border around it, and then we'll add the letters and then actually get to making the thing into a bulletin board. So one thing I can say about this border while I put it up is that border sometimes can be very hard to get into, especially if it's a new roll. And this border would not let me get into it. It was stronger than the people at the Capitol because it was not breaking for me. So one thing about me, and anybody who knows me as an RA can tell you this, but when I put up border, I'm very picky. I like the border to always start on a new end. So just because I cut the border at one spot doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to start from that end. I usually flip it over and unroll it and then use the other end to start a new side. And I always start with my left and right side first, and then I do the top. That's how picky I am. So what I'm doing now is basically sorting out the letters to go into my bulletin board. So the bulletin board is going to read, "There's a imposter among us," and then at the bottom it's going to say, "Eject bad habits in 2021." Here's a quick pro RA tip. While you guys put your bulletin boards up, when you guys start to put your letters up, especially if you have really long phrases, put your letters into your borders. That way you can just easily grab them as you put the words up. So as you guys can see, I'm currently putting up my letters, and I'm so glad that all my letters were able to fit on the bulletin board. Pretty much everything on this bulletin board except the border I made custom by using my Cricut, and I was so excited to make this because this is a really fun bulletin board for me to do. So I started to go ahead and put the words on the bottom of my bulletin board, and I started with eject, but then I didn't like where it was because I figured that all my words weren't gonna fit across it. So I had to basically work backwards from what I wanted the first row to be and then work down to the second row. So as I'm finishing up, I guess you guys can go ahead and tell that my bulletin board says there's a imposter among us, eject bad habits in 2021. So basically I just wanted to make a bulletin board for my residents to essentially eject those bad habits that they had in 2020 and not bring them into 2021. So now it's time to go ahead and add the Among Us astronauts or Among Us men, whatever they're called. I really had fun making them because they're so colorful. So now I'm adding a bunch of bad habits that my residents may resonate with, like unhealthy eating habits or toxic friendships, dating apps, things of that nature.
Approximately 10 hours later.
Alright, so this is what the bulletin board looks like, the final look. I really had fun putting this bulletin board together because Among Us is a game that we play as a staff sometimes, but a game that I also like to play too. So, hope you guys enjoyed.